Welcome to the Forward Focus Flashcast. If you're joining us for the first time, we're honored that you're here. If you're returning, welcome back. At Forward Focus, we have episodes designed to help you become a better and more well-rounded leader with quick tips that you can implement right away in your life and business. In today's episode, we're actually downloading the difference between leader versus manager. We have a little bit of an assessment, a self-assessment we're going to give you to decide what your next right step should be in your organization. So let's dive in. So I don't know about you, but I get often asked the difference between a manager or a leader, how to become a better leader, when in fact the right question is, do you have the right balance, A, in your own role of the leadership hat versus manager hat, and two, depending on the size and scope of your organization, do you have enough leaders and managers that you're leading and managing to achieve the goal and the outcome that's desired? So here's how we're going to set up this episode. First and foremost, if you're driving or at the gym or listening in a place where you can't write or type, first off, thanks for listening. We love that. And I really encourage you to come back and, re-listen to this section that I'm about to go through, or maybe even hit pause on this episode and come back at a better time, because this one is going to be a little interactive and I want you to get the most value out of the episode. I also am a big believer that you can listen to multiple episodes or the same episode multiple times rather and get different pieces out of it. So, if you are raking the leaves or shoveling the driveway and you're listening to us, just remember that there is an activity to come back to. Okay, so if you're able to do the activity, what I'd like you to do, get a blank piece of paper and make a T, right? So basically a column down the middle of it and then a header up top, make a T. And on the left side of that, I want you to write leader. And on the right side, I want you to write manager or managing. And so here's what I'm going to do. Without defining it, right? I'm just going to give a series of statements, and I want you to put an X or a check mark or a mark on either side of the column that it applies. So what I mean by that is when I make the statement, I want you to think back for your last 3, 4, 5, 6 months in whatever role you are, whether it's a small business and it's me, myself, and I at, team meetings, or if you run a team of 20 people, think about your predominant role every day and if it applies more as a manager or as a leader. And I want to also say this, don't be married to the outcome. Don't be aspirational saying, I want to be the best leader possible, so I'm going to mark everything leader. Because leaders also understand that we need to be self-aware, that we need to grow into the leader we deserve and desire to be. And so sometimes it's this moment right here, being authentically real on an activity to then know what the next step is to take. Okay, so here's the first one. We got leader and manager, right? So thinking back over your last 3 to 6 months in your role, the following statement, which applies more, put an X. A manager administers, a leader innovates or creates. Which applies? Make an X on one of your columns. Next one. The manager maintains and the leader develops. Manager maintains, leader develops. Next one. The manager focuses on systems and structure. The leader focuses on people. So you should have 3 X's now on your sheet. Okay. Next one. The manager relies on control. The leader inspires trust. Next one. The manager has short-range views or targets. A leader has a longer-range perspective. Short-range views or targets, long-range perspective. Next one. The manager asks how and when. The leader asks what and why. Next one, the manager has his or her eye always on the bottom line, right? So the financials. The leader's eye is on the horizon, where we're going. Next, the manager role accepts status quo. It is what it is. The leader constantly challenges status quo. Got two more. The manager is a classic good soldier, right? Does what he's told, does what she's told to do. Whereas the leader is his or her own person. And then lastly, the manager does things right. The leader does the right thing regardless of policy. Okay, so now you've got these series of X's on the manager and leader sides. What are your results? Are you 50-50? Are you 25-75? Are you more than 90% on one side or the other? Just kind of take note of that on where you are in this exercise. And if you need a moment, just hit pause. So I'm going to dive right into some ahas and how this applies. Here's the first thing. If you're more than 90% one way or the other, there's 100% opportunity for you to grow. I don't care if you're the president of the United States. I don't care if you're the CEO of Tesla. There are times that these folks need to manage and times that they need to lead. If you think about what's happening right now, or it has been happening for the last 8 months plus with Ukraine and Russia, right? What we've seen out of the Ukrainian president has been leadership. He's managed to still run the country to the best of his ability through his people, but the videos, being out on the front lines, talking through and communicating directly to Vladimir Putin, that's leadership. So your hats, my point in bringing that example up is your hats do adjust, but at the end of the day, you need to both lead and manage. Both lead and manage. If you're looking at your sheet right now and you have a lot, if you're the leader of your company, the founder of your company, it's your business, it's your baby, right? Those would be the languages to look for to be the leader of that company. Yet you have, 60, 70, 80% is management of that company. It may be high time to either look for a manager to come in and do some of those management items so you can focus more on leading, get you back closer to 50-50 or even 75-25 leadership to management. Or there may be somebody within your organization that's looking for that next opportunity that has some of the qualities a manager should possess, and it might be time to look at promoting them. So that's one thing that might be a takeaway from this. Another is if you are too heavily on the leadership side, right? You have big ideas. So this would be for somebody that has a lot of good ideas, a big vision. You're somebody, if you're honest with yourself, you've got several started projects that aren't finished. You got new ideas that you've thought about. You're on chapter 2 of that 10-page book 5 times over, right? You have all these new tools and services and things you want to deliver. That's great, by the way. We need that manager, though. So if you're too heavy on that, it might be time to also get a manager that can execute on some of these things, hold you and your organization accountable to finishing and completing those tasks so the visions become variety within your organization. They become reality for what your team can accomplish. There's 5 hats that are sort of shared between management and leadership. So I want to make sure I mention this as well. So once we have clarity on maybe which way we're leaning, and that gives us a little bit of clarity on what we need to do next in our organization, either hire a manager, maybe inspire somebody else to take on more of a leadership role if you find yourself being more naturally the managing hat, or maybe promoting within, right? And holding that person is holding you accountable to get your vision to reality. But there's 5 things that I want to add to this. Number 1, both leaders and managers accomplish a goal, right? Their desire is to accomplish a goal or multiple goals. So that can be a shared thing. Number 2 is explaining the vision. They explain them a little differently, right? A leader casts the vision. Says, what would it look like when? Imagine if, right? So if Jeff Bezos years ago in that garage as he's building Amazon was saying, what would it look like when people ordered a package and it was at their doorstep within 48 hours? But a manager actually has to explain that vision too, right? To clients, to sales managers, to employees within the organization. So connecting with an employee and saying, have you ever been out of something, maybe diapers with 2 babies under the age of 2, and you wished you could just swipe on your phone and that diaper delivers to your porch? That might be how the manager is able to execute on the vision of the leader, but then bring it home to that employee and be like, wow, yeah, I would love that. What do I got to do to make it happen, right? So explaining that vision happens at both levels as well. Number 3, organizational figureheads. This is huge. Leaders are always talking about where they're going, how they're going to get there. They're talking about like what it will accomplish and the problem it solves. It's also that leader's job to think about the people on the bus and making sure that those things get done. So a manager is going to go to the leader and say, listen, this is what you desire, but we don't have the bandwidth or the people to do that. So how do you envision us, leader, getting there with either the current staff we have, what system, what tool, what procedure are we going to put in to get that? And then the manager would go to get it done, right? But the aha from that conversation may be the leader saying, I agree, we need to hire 2 more people. So let's hire 2 people by when? And the manager puts on the managing hat and says, we can hire 1 person in the 4th quarter and 1 person in the 1st quarter. And here's what their job duties and functions will be. Does that align with your vision, right? Do you see how those complement each other? Now be careful, because if you're the leader and manager in your organization and you're talking to yourself like that, you might look a little silly, right? So this is why journaling is so important, and thinking about, okay, I'm going to journal from a leader's hat versus a manager's hat. Really being aware of which hat you're wearing as you're journaling and reflecting is critical to help your organization go to that next level. 2 more that both leaders and managers do. 1, motivate others, right? Making sure that they are bought in, making sure that they see that when they accomplish X, Y, and Z in their role, that the company wins too. Keeping them motivated is critical through the peaks and valleys of running any organization. And then lastly, mobilizing resources. On this one, I believe it's the leader's job to have access to the resources or get the company access to the resources. And it's the manager's job to effectively use it and do so in a very efficient and smart process. Those resources are critical to the company. Leader needs to get you access and continued access, and the manager is the steward of those resources and effectively can manage how we're using them, when we're using them, and in what way we're employing them. So let's take this home. First and foremost, we did the activity. Are you leaning one way or the other more in your business? Are you more naturally a leader, more naturally a manager? Both are fine, but having awareness of where you naturally align yourself with, where your natural characteristics are, gives you insight on what the next hire or next decision needs to be in your company, whether that's promoting within, whether that's finding a manager, whether that's assuming the management roles and hiring somebody else to be the visionary, the big thinker. All of those things could be possible after going through this little checklist we did. Number 2, there's 5 things that both leaders and managers do. They accomplish a goal, they explain a vision, they have organizational figureheads and an organizational map to follow, they motivate others, and they mobilize and use resources. Those things go hand in hand. So my call to action is this. What are you putting in your next year's growth plan to become a more efficient manager and a better leader? You need both in every company. What's the next best step you need to take? If you found value in today's episode, please be sure to subscribe so you never miss a lesson to be the leader that you deserve to be. And until next time, lead on.